welcome to our September 15th special board meeting. This, as you know, is a meeting focused on making our decision to whether or not to move forward with the project, with the construction project, with building construction project. I will clarify, we had the potential to go into executive session today just in case there were any updates from the union negotiations. We will not need to use that option. So we will not be going into executive session at the end of this meeting, just to be clear. This meeting is being recorded, and I am going to record attendance. In attendance from the board as Maura and Navin Webster, Roger Jarrett, Bella Gorman, Darren Rose, Evan Siborowski, Greg Theos, Jill Schaefer, and Samini Sampath. And we have some guests, including Bob Baldwin, and of course, Lisa, Sarah, and Liana. Bella, did we receive any requests for public comment? I don't see.
We did not.
Okay, and I don't see anybody dialed in, so I will assume there is no public comment. So I'm gonna, I guess, take the easy things out first. I don't know if any of this is easy, but we had 3 votes today, so we obviously want to leave enough time for discussion on the big decision about the building project. But maybe we want to talk about the other 2 votes, Roger, and I'm going to turn it over to you because they're related, but not necessarily, you know. And I guess we don't need to vote in the order that's in the agenda, right? So I'll let you talk about the decision for the HVAC units for 199, and then the discussion about the change order approval process.
Well, I was actually thinking that definitely the change order approval process follows the building vote. We could warm up by talking about the AC units, if that's pleasure.
Sure.
You know, I'll also ask Liana for assistance, but basically this has come up through presented at finance on Tuesday that one more of the AC units on 199 is on its last legs and expect to need to be replaced anytime soon. And there are a total of four additional units, a total of 4 that are beyond the end of their expected lifetime. And as a result of that, the finance committee is making a recommendation that's passed out of finance to make a recommendation to the board to approve the purchase of up to 4 additional heating air conditioning units for $199 at a total cost of $260. This is, just as a clarification, this is in addition to the one that we had already approved, and it's on order and hopefully will arrive in the October timeframe.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we're kind of getting ahead of it because we've learned how long the lead time is for these things, right?
That, Raul, and one of the units did go down, and when they came and they got it back up, they told us that it was, they were fortunate to get it back up and going. So the next time it goes down, we may not have such luck. And also the lead time, because the other one was ordered in March and it's actually coming in November.
Yeah. And
Roger, do we?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if we know kind of what the current lead time is from this particular vendor, and 2, are we tied to this vendor? Are there any other options that could get us these units faster, knowing what a challenge this has been for our staff and our students?
So with it's a great question, Maura. With the vote would allow us to purchase up to 4, but we will be in the process of getting bids and looking into that because we cap the amount of money at a certain amount of money, and quite frankly, Liana, and jump in anytime, Liana. We're weighing what we're really, really comfortable with. If we really are comfortable going up to 4 and 260, or if we're better off doing 2 now. We're getting quotes that, are for 2 and for 4 because we have an understanding that possibly there is a savings if you do them all at once because you only bring a crane in once. So we're going to be investigating all of that and doing our due diligence and, using the best company with the shortest lead time and the best, price for what we need. This will give us the ability to move forward with all those investigations and then making a decision.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sooner is better when it comes to this stuff. I think we've learned.
Yeah.
And just to reemphasize that all 4 of these units that we are looking to replace are past their scheduled useful lifetime.
Yeah, and to that point, I think I know the answer to this, but just to be clear, this was part of that capital plan that we had of things that we were foreseeing, right? Not in the budget, but
yeah,
in the plan.
Yes, it was. It's an item that was in the plan.
And it wasn't yellow flagged. So finance was looking at it to move it forward if possible.
Yeah. And what's particularly changed here was exactly the incident that Lisa talked about, that one of the units required servicing, and that's what brought it forward as to why we need to make a decision now, especially given the lead time, that even if we authorize this now, given the track record on the previous one, 6 months from now would probably be optimistic.
I also want to add, I think, when one goes down, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leona and Lisa, that, we have to do some fill-in, which is cost to us. So it's kind of like penny wise, pound foolish, because we're at, maybe doing a temporary fix because one went down.
Yeah, the temporary fix can be costly. And Leona might have the numbers that we did send the rented big units back. They weren't really that effective. They were very costly. We purchased some small units, but they're working very efficiently and they're able to take care of the rooms. When it hits 80, when it hits 90, we're in trouble again, or 90 plus. But yeah, it's better to not have to try to, like Bella said, penny. I always mix that saying up, but to spend the money on the short stuff, it just doesn't make sense to keep doing that.
And Roger, just to be clear, I'm reading from the attachment, what we're talking about is a $220,000 decision, right?
No, the motion was for 260.
I believe it was for 206. The amount was for up to 260,000, which nets to 65,000 per unit.
The attachment hasn't been updated, so the attachment has 220,000 in there, and that is at $55,000 a unit. But we recognize that $55,000 was a quote that was a while ago, so we decided to put some margin in there. So the attachment actually does have the old number at 220, but we in finance approved the 260.
And I think Leanna shared the wording. So to make sure we get the motion right. Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
I just had a quick question in regards to the bigger picture of the other buildings on campus as well. Maybe this was something that was addressed before my arrival to the board, but I am curious about the status of the other AC units attached to the other buildings as well, and if that's something we should keep on our radar for the future, knowing that, all of the ACs on the current building are, past lifetime. What's the status of the others? And should we be planning for that, thinking about these?
So it is part of that capital plan that we presented at the last board meeting. You'll see in there, Evan, that they're on the list for sure. And we've tried to step it out. I think that other building is stepped out till next year. Just had to incur the costs, each year. And those temporary ACs, if something should happen, in the building for the lower school, we would be able to use those, move them, and shift them. But yeah, I think we're going to have a continued commitment to capital, a chunk at a time, because it was not ignored, because that's a bad malicious type of word. It was put on the back burner for a little while because it had to be, and I think we have to refocus.
Thank you.
Any other questions, or are we ready to vote on this?
I just needed to ask, I was gone for just about a second. I was just wondering, is this the first vote you're taking?
Well, in the agenda is third.
But it's the first one now. I'll just rearrange. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that may have been my fault. I thought we'll get the easy one out of the way first.
Okay, no, that's good.
Yeah. Any other questions? Concerns, quandaries? All right, if not, I will entertain, I'm going to get the wording right. I'm going to entertain a motion to authorize the purchase of up to 4 rooftop units for $199 at a cost of not to exceed $260,000, which is in addition to the one we already approved and is on order.
So moved. Maura.
So Maura moved.
Seconded.
Gregory.
Greg got it.
Greg
Okay.
seconds. I can roll the call, Sarah, if it will save your.
No, I'm okay this time. I can do that.
Okay, go for it.
Bella Gorman,
Yes.
Darren Rose.
I was on mute, but yes.
Okay. Evan Prisbobrowski,
Yes.
Gregory Theos,
Yes.
and Jill Schaefer,
Yes.
Laura Webster,
Yes.
Raul Porras,
Yes.
Roger Jarrett,
Yes.
and Salmini Sampath. That's everyone.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Thank you. Hopefully this will go a long way so we don't have to have half days next time the temperature hits the 90s. All right, Roger, I'll give you the other 2 votes in whatever order you want to start talking about. I'll turn over to you and or Leanna for the GMP discussion first.
I will just kick it off to say that we should do the building first and turn it over to Liana or Bob Baldwin to present the details on the contract.
All right. Go for it.
Liana, you want me to take that? I'll take that as a yes. So hello folks, good evening. I am pleased to bring a guaranteed maximum price construction contract for the new building with hopefully a little less drama attached to it than the last couple of years. We have the price that we have in front of you is $12,760,000. And when you look at apples to apples, what our budget was for this, it is about $20,000 lower. We had, it's really that simple. We are making no other changes to the overall project budget, sources and uses, which I think was distributed to you earlier. We still have a $29,698,000 all-in project. Of course, that includes the acquisition of the property we did some time ago. We're looking to take that $22,000 savings, if you will, and just put it into the construction contract. I'm sorry, the change order contingency, the owner's change order contingency, which then carries that from 800,000 to 822, which is about 6.5%, which I think is a very responsible number for a new build construction. The there's a lot of detail to it that I could answer questions on or walk you through, but it is the result of subcontractor bids for about half the value that came in through filed sub bid, very a very public process, very formal process. And then the rest of them are subcontracts, steel, site work, drywall, things like that, that the contractor WT Rich went out and got. But, you know, the number represents the compilation of all the sub prices and the general conditions and overhead for the contractor, all of which have been negotiated very carefully. The schedule would, when we get started, they'll probably mobilize early next month. And the schedule attached to the contract has a completion date of, I think, around January 20th, 2025. So about a year and like 14, 15 months. It will certainly be our goal and intention, and I think we have, if we have maybe just a little bit of luck on the lead times and procurement and some equipment, I think we'll probably be able to deliver the building over Christmas break. If that is more convenient to move in, that is certainly something we'll aim for. But in any event, I think it's a very comfortable schedule, barring, again, only, I'd say, electrical switchgear and transformers that are just a little unpredictable these days, to hit it on time. I think the last thing I'll just want to mention is that the contract includes, in addition to our change order contingency, there is a contractor contingency, a CM contingency in there for a little under $200,000. So, and that's your money as well. I think it's important to mention that any and all savings underneath the 12,760 is 100% belongs to you all, the owner. So again, it'll be our hope to actually bring this thing in, not only with return some of that $800,000 change order contingency to you, but very possibly not even spend the entire 12,760. But don't count on it. It's a contract. We're not there yet. So I think I'll pause and entertain any questions or anything that I missed.
So, but just to make sure I'm interpreting this right, so when you say contingencies and there's the appendix that has assumptions and clarifications, there's some things that are crossed out, and you mentioned the steel, just to pick on one. There was a comment there about, you know, steel prices, whatnot, there's a variability in the market and so that's crossed out, and I'm assuming that means that we're comfortable with, you know, what was used as an assumption for those costs is stable and, you know, not a risk, right?
Yeah, Raleigh, you're 100% correct. So we went through, you know, their original proposal of all this. It was probably a couple weeks ago, and carefully and, you know, negotiated everything. And frankly, it was really a qualification that didn't belong there anyway. I think it came from another job that where steel purchases were much further into the future for that job. But yeah, I mean, our steel is already, it's not procured, but pretty close. So yeah, we eliminated that. We want this thing to be, you know, our goal is to minimize, you know, any holes in the contract, if you will, like things like that. And I think we've done a pretty good job.
Excellent. Yeah, when I see the other things that are crossed off, there don't seem to me that they're major issues. That was the one that stood out just because you mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, those are the ones we just basically didn't accept, those qualifications. They're crossed out.
Any other questions from?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Is that because I heard both things in there, is this the vote for the new building contract or the change order approval process?
The first one.
Okay, thank you.
Just a curiosity question. So first, I'd say that finance reviewed this in detail and is making the recommendation to the board to approve this contract. And the one question I had was, Bob, can you talk a little bit about when construction will be occurring?
Sure. Yeah, so there's been presence on site all summer, of course, because we did the loop road. So, you know, the contractor actually is kind of mobilized. But it's been a very, very quiet month. I think they're going to go in and do the final paving on the loop road in another week or two. So, but this contract here, this piece, I think, according to their schedule, they're talking about like October 15th or something, but we had a meeting today and I think they're going to get out there with the site contractor and start doing some work probably more around October 5th or 6th. The schedule really, it's you know, what the key piece that kind of drives the schedule right now is the steel. They have a pretty good idea when that steel is going to arrive. I can't remember when, but I think it's like February or January or something. And so the key is to have the foundations and everything done by then, and they have plenty of time to do that. My point being, if they started, you know, today rather than a week from today, it wouldn't change the end date because they'd be sitting around waiting for the steel to show up.
I guess just out of curiosity, what kind of disruption, like noise level, is that going to be during the school day?
Yeah, it shouldn't be bad. It really shouldn't. They're you know, the worst noise that ever occurs on these jobs, in my opinion, is when they run into some ledge or rock and it's too small to blast. So it's what's called a hole ram, and it'll drive you nuts. They just bang away at it. We have done actually quite a bit of geotech, and we think we'll run into something, but it's not going to be like I really would be surprised if it was like 4 days of banging away at something. So honestly, it's pretty quiet from there. You know, there'll be the steel erection. We'll probably have a crane out there for maybe a week. But that doesn't even make that much noise, really. I think we should be in good shape there.
Oh,
Well, I don't know that there's ever an easy $12 million decision, but this one's going to be as easy as it gets, I think.
yeah. And Darren, you made me think of Evan's comment earlier. He prefaced this question by saying, hey, I don't know if you guys already talked about this before I joined the board. You know, now's the time to assume nothing. You know, if you have a question, if you're curious about something, regardless of how long we've been talking about this, you know, speaking from somebody who's been on the board for almost 7 years, we have been talking about some version of this in all of that time. So you know, it's important to clarify whether you've been around for those 7 years or not, anything that might cross your mind, any concerns you might have. So, you know, don't filter your questions. I guess this is my ask. Now, I do think, you know, it makes me, like you said, you know, an easy decision in the sense that finance also has reviewed this, and they know who sits on finance. So I know you guys are very thorough in your questions and your thinking and your, you know, going over the details. But I'm going to attempt to sum it up in the big, you know, high level picture from a numbers perspective. We took a loan for $24 million. We spent about half of that buying the buildings that we own. So we have $12 million left of that, about, right? We already spent, on top of those $12 million, about another, I'm going to say 3, just by looking at the memo from finance earlier. But those 3 are part of the 5 and change that we said we were going to use from our own cash, which means that we still have about $12 million left on that loan. So what's left to spend is about 14. So that's 12 from the loan and 2 from the cash that we said that we were going to set aside anyways. And that's not counting the fundraising that we're all going to do in the next few years, that it's hopefully, you know, $2 million and beyond. So that gives the, you know, I think a leeway and a buffer that to your point, just looking at the big picture numbers, and I know this is not the kind of decision that should be made just looking at the big picture numbers, but to sum it up and to boil it down to those big picture numbers, that's how I see it. Did I say anything wrong, Roger or Bella?
No, I think you rounded up some numbers, but in the grand scheme, I think that's the picture. The other thing that I thought was really useful that Lisa, and I'm sure with Liana's help, put together was that PowerPoint that got sent out to the community that kind of shows like how much money we have and what's left after we put money into the building. And we do have some cushion. We do have to, we have these HVACs we're going to buy, etc., but we do have some cushion.
And I know I've said this before, but from an operations perspective on the school, this is a capital project. This is something that doesn't, yes, paying the loan comes out of our annual budget and our, what we get for revenue for tuition, etc. But it's not like, deciding to move forward with this is going to affect our ability to pay our teachers or, do any of our operational activity, which we continue to think of ways to grow that and to make that more sustainable. But it's different. Think of it as a different pocket because it's a capital project, and that's the reason why we have that loan. And I know we talked about this in the last meeting, but the terms that we got from that loan are terms that are not coming back anytime soon, as far as the economy goes. So if we're already $50 million into this project, if you think of it that way, so not moving forward would mean that to finish it at some other time, we would have to go back and find that money some other way with probably not as favorable terms.
I have a bit of this question feels kind of small after $50
No
million.
question is too small, yeah.
On sort of a similar note of the noise level question, do we have a good picture of how this construction is going to affect like pedestrian access around the buildings and also the traffic situation? I mean, I know where it is, but I don't know exactly how much of campus is going to be sort of dug up. I don't have a clear picture in my mind, so I'm just wondering what that looks like.
So that's a great question, Greg. Right now, where you see the construction fence on campus, that's the only area that is going to be utilized, with the exception of the need to dig an electrical trench. And Bob alluded to the transformer situation. We have to have that inspected before we can order the transformer. So there's been a lot of talk about the when. So we feel that at some point between now and before January 1, we are going to have to move the staff parking lot that, it was a senior parking lot and now it's a staff parking lot. We are going to have to move that for a period of, 2 to 3 weeks to 4 kicks. That's the only disruption that anyone will see beyond what's already been disrupted. And I know after our call this morning, Eric was speaking with Fraser, who kind of manages all that. And they are talking, possibly about doing it right in December, right when we have our break, because that is 2 weeks. So, and getting it done, then the staff would be disrupted for like a week and, but that's the only disruption that we anticipate. As I said, besides what you can see right now.
Other questions? Sally? Mara?
I felt like the proposal was pretty clear, frankly, and I think we've had a lot of conversations about it since you asked, and that's my response.
Go ahead, Mara.
I just want to make a note, like, yes, everything is there and the money, like everything's looking like it's a really good situation, but I don't want to give the impression that we don't really need to fundraise, because we really do need to raise the funds. And that number is not gonna not going to stay small because we have a multi-phase project, you know, that we're looking at long term, and to really outfit these labs and these buildings in a way that really is going to benefit our students and the school long term. The fundraising piece is actually critically important. So I'm really excited about how the financing is looking, but I just want to share that message that we really need to stay, yay, fundraising.
Yes. So that's an excellent point, and I'm glad you said it because it needed to be said. For the sake of history, when you say this is a multi-phase project, I had not highlighted that when I said, you know, we've been talking about this for 7 years. Some of you may remember that our original plan of the construction was to build out the space that we have in the white building. And then we realized that the cost would be prohibitive. We would have to basically rebuild the building with new stairs, etc., which is why we decided, instead of building a new gym, to use that space to build this building that we are considering right now. And the idea and the design was made so that we can then, in the future phase, expand that building to include that athletic space that were originally planning to use that room for. So to your point, you know, we still need to fundraise for that. We still need to fundraise where this is going to take forward. So absolutely, everybody should be hearing that. We still need to continue to, you know, push the pedal to the metal on our fundraising efforts on making sure we support this project and any future phases with as much as we can from the community.
Can I just add to that? I don't know if it's already been discussed in previous years, but you know, there's also likely an impact to OpEx post-construction. So I'm involved in another organization where, you know, if you're a donor and you want to give $20 million to construct a new building, we're looking for $3 to $4 million in maintenance endowment, right? Because, you know, you've got 4 air conditioners that need replacing today. You're going to have to maintain, you know, every additional square foot is going to cost you in the operating budget in addition to whatever the CapEx is. So we definitely need to raise the money.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what Maura said.
Yeah.
If I just reminded me, Ro, if I could jump in on you all, the board also, I think it was whatever it was a year ago or more, requested a master plan. And I just want to let you know that has been drafted by the architects and is under review, you know, by the team. But we haven't forgotten that. That's what lays out where the gym will go and what some future projects may look like. And so you'll have that within a few months.
Any other comments, questions, concerns, quandaries? Jill, you came on camera. I'm going to pick on you because of that.
No, actually, I don't have any questions this time. I feel very well informed. Thank you, everybody.
And you've also been around probably as long as I have, so you've been throughout all the different steps that we have taken that have gotten us to this point. So if you're comfortable with where we are, then I think that's a good thing.
Yep, it's been a long road to get here. Exactly.
If we're all pulling out the experience card, I think Evan and I might have the trump cards in this situation.
Absolutely.
Just as a closing comment here, AMSA has been looking for a building since I was 12, which was not that long ago, but it was fairly long ago. And the same is true for Evan as well. So let's do it. You know, space is important. It's like one of the core issues at AMSA. Let's get it done.
Excellent.
Well said.
All right. I was trying to drag it out to make sure there was discussion and questions answered, but with that closing, I don't think I have to drag it out anymore. So I'm gonna, Roger, you tell me if I'm doing the motion correctly. The motion would be to make an amendment to the agreement we have between AMSA and our construction manager that includes the GMP, which essentially authorizes them to continue to move forward with the project. Is that the motion?
Well, I think it may may be simpler, and I defer maybe to Liana, but I think that we're basically, that we are authorizing we're accepting this GMT contract, and we're authorizing the board is accepting and signing off on this GMT contract as written.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to identify it in the vote, you could say, amendment number 3 to the contract dated August 24th. Period, or, you know, for an additional 12,760,000.
All right, so I'm gonna read that out.
What was the amount?
It's an additional 12,760,000.
So I will entertain a motion to accept the GMP contract as presented with amendment number 3 dated August 24th, 2023 for an additional $12,760,000.
Second?
But that could be your motion.
Yeah, okay, I will make that motion.
Move,
I'll second it. It's Darren.
Darren. So moved by Roger, seconded by Darren. Do you want to call the roll, Sarah?
Bella Gorman,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Gregory,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Raul.
To quote Greg, let's do it.
Let's do it. Roger
Yes.
and Salmini.
Yes.
Very good.
And the motion passes. Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations, AMSA, for this step we're taking. The work doesn't end. The real work actually just starts. You know, I think construction workers will feel that we're doing them a disservice to think that we're doing a lot of work to this point, but yeah, it takes a lot of work to get to this point. So I appreciate everything everybody has done. Bob and Liana, you've been tremendous in your effort, not only running the school on a day-to-day, but also thinking about the future and thinking about how this can affect the school in any possible way. So I am confident that we have done as much as we can to be thorough about this. And like I said before, this is the second biggest decision we've taken this year as a board. So it is very exciting to see that we're moving forward with this. And I'm very confident that it will bring the best for AMSA. Awesome. That being said, that decision, because we're taking on this big step, made us think about how do we make sure we prepare ourselves for what's going to come forward, not only with this project, but others that we might take from a capital perspective, which is why I brought up in our last meeting that there has been some discussion about establishing a change order approval process. I believe that process was discussed in finance, and there's been some specifics that were presented on that. So that's the other vote we have for today, is to approve that change order approval process for capital projects. So I don't know, Roger, if you have something to share, or Liana, or
I don't have the easily share the document, but I can talk through it. So this change order process is specific to the new building. It's not.
It's not for other projects.
It's not for other projects. It's designed specifically for the new building project that we just approved, for the whole. We think of it, the GMP contract as with amendment number 3.
Should I share my screen?
Yeah, if you could, that would be great.
You may need to be given presentation rights,
Oh,
and I think it'll be Lisa. It'll have to be from
Lisa, or
You'll have to do the share.
I'm working on getting the document up. Just give me one
okay.
second.
Yeah, either that or let promote Bella to host or co-host.
I might have, I probably have the most updated one. So let me just, yeah, that'll work.
So what it basically says is the levels, right, Roger?
Yeah.
all right. So the purpose of this change order process is to create various levels where for the small and medium sized things, we will not be coming back to the board for approvals. So the first level, Bob Baldwin has the ability to approve up to 15,000 with a total to exceed 50 over the project. The executive director or Liana have higher authority to approve up to $100,000 in some not to exceed 800. And for large changes that you need to either go to the finance committee, or in the extent of an extremely large change, they would need to go to the full board. And the big takeaway is that the executive director and the director of finance plus Bob Baldwin's contingencies basically line up with the contingency fees that we have in the contract that we just approved.
I'm trying to reconcile. Is it okay to ask a question now?
Yes, please.
I'm trying to reconcile bullet number 2 in the construction approvals levels with bullet number 4. Actually, even 3, because I think I see. So I guess the question I have is, when you say not to exceed 800,000, up to 800,000, the board isn't even going to see it. Is that the way I should read that?
There's going to be a reporting out process. So we're going to be reporting out monthly to the finance committee, and we certainly can make it an agenda item on the board meeting. We don't want to slow the construction down. So we felt, or finance felt, that as long as we stay within the contingency, they would give us kind of the authority to make the decisions, but they wanted to be kept in the loop on a monthly basis. Did I get that right, guys?
Yeah. So the difference about being informed and having to be a step on the decision.
Right. And does the language around contingency amount and 800,000 for the project, the way it's listed in bullet 4, do they mean the same thing?
I would think so. I mean, actually have more contingency.
Should the language actually say for not to exceed 800,000 for the contingency amount, even in the third bullet? I guess I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah, I think they mean the same thing. So
yeah, it's the same number.
It's each decision. Yeah, it's the same number. And what I understand is that there could be 8 $100,000 decisions. And then if the ninth, I hope not, but if there's a ninth $100,000 decision, then even though it's $100,000, you can't move forward because you already hit that ceiling.
And at that point, it does come to the board?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the two places where it would come to the board would be if an individual change order were to exceed $300,000, or if the change orders in total have exceeded the $800,000.
So in some sense, like, well, once the 800,000 cap is met, then any change order would come to the board. I'm trying to understand.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what would likely, hopefully we're not in that, we sort of discussed a variation of that in finance, that, you know, we will be informed of the change orders as the project proceeds. And if we start getting close to one of the cap, you know, if in the unlikely event we come close to the $800,000, we'll reconvene and decide what to do. You know, so that we can keep the project going or readjust the project, you know, so that we don't require a board meeting for a $1,000 contingency change.
I think, and my hypothesis is probably wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway, just because I'm trying to understand what the overall landscape looks like. I mean, typically I would want to see and prioritize, if there's a group of orders, whether we need to go forward with all of them or not, and whether we're going to stay under the cap or, again, I appreciate that finance and generally anybody who is sort of trying to move the project forward needs the autonomy to make those decisions. But from a prioritization perspective, are we going to be in a position where, for example, we hit some sort of cap and then afterwards you're coming and saying, oh, but these other things are even more important than what we already spent the money on, and the board is going to be in a position where we're going to make those kinds of calls.
So change orders will be around things that are necessary to move the building forward. So for instance, we'll go back to the loop road, right? So they started the loop road, they were building the loop road, and they hit dirt, for lack of technical terms, so forgive me any construction people, that was squishy and the road was starting to buckle, right? So we had, in order to finish the road, we had to approve that change order. These are not like, oh, we like the padded chairs over the wooden chairs types of decisions. Nothing will be a change order unless it's absolutely necessary. So if they start the site work, like Bob said, they've done a lot of geotechnical work, they don't anticipate ledge, but if they hit ledge, we're going to get a change order. And if we want to build the building, we have to get rid of the ledge. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the biggest way we can risk manage this, because you're sort of going to be making decisions as we go through the project, is that the communication to the finance committee and to the board, having visibility as to how much of our change order contingency fund we have used up as the project goes.
And I know that we've, I guess, or at least talked about either in my interview or sometime close, I'm happy to do like Friday updates after the construction meeting if we're talking about anything big, where I just, it's not going to violate open meeting law, because I'm just going to send you an email and you're not going to respond back. But, I am really happy to keep you all updated throughout the process, because I think that that'll increase the comfort level. I'll absolutely share what I know and what I learn, and, work on it in partnership with Liana, just to make sure you're all feeling very comfortable. But this really is the way to ensure that the project doesn't get delayed.
And maybe to that point, I don't know if it's worth putting it in part of and another bullet point in the process, but since we're making this I don't know if it's officially a guideline or policy or whatnot, but the process could also include any change orders will be summarized and reported to finance committee, who will then share with the board or something like that.
Yeah, I thought, and I know Rihanna's having trouble, I think, with her audio. Didn't we add that, Roger? Because I'm not seeing it in mine. I thought we added a bullet about reporting out monthly to finance, and I don't see it here.
I don't think we discussed it and it was the plan, but we did not explicitly add it to the change order process. But it was definitely the plan that we were going to do it. So you can memorialize it by adding a bullet.
I'm going to put it in as a note, because it's not really part of the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that helps clarify that. Any other questions about the process? I don't know what to call it, policy guideline, but
it's an official process. It's stronger than a guideline. It's not a guideline. It is a official process.
Okay. Any other questions about the official process? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the construction change order approval process with the edits that we all saw Dr. Mobley making.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved by Roger, second by Bella.
And Sarah, I just shared that document with you, so you would have like the right one.
Yeah. You're on mute, sir. You want me to call the roll, or?
Nope, I'm good. Bella,
We're voting now. Yeah. You're on mute.
Bella, Darren.
Yes,
Sorry,
Did
yes.
I hear you, Bella? Okay, Darren,
yes,
Evan,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Mara,
Yes.
Raul,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
and Salmini.
Yes.
That's everyone.
And the motion passes. Thank you. And maybe, I mean, we don't have to do this now, but maybe I misspoke when I introduced the discussion to say that this could be applied for other capital projects, but maybe we can in the future generalize it for anything that requires change orders. We're breaking new ground in more than one sense at AMSA, so I think this is good for us to improve our maturity on these things. Awesome. So that is basically it for the meeting. I did want to, we had an item on the agenda to confirm future meeting dates. There will not be a full board meeting in September or the rest of September. So our next full official board meetings for committee report outs and all that good stuff will be in October, which is October 26th. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yes.
Do we agree we want to do that in person since we haven't seen each other in a while? Yes, yes. Okay, yes. We're going to meet in person on the 26th at the upper school cafeteria at what, 6 o'clock? Is that our regular time? Yeah.
Maybe 6:30 with travel time.
Sure, 6:30.
Six is a bit rough for some of us.
No problem. 6:30 is good. One reminder for that, you may have seen an email from me. When we did strategic planning at the beginning of the year, and then when we started talking about goal setting, et cetera, we made a commitment to, keep track of our goals. So I did send an email out, I think it was yesterday, because we actually did discuss on governance yesterday, to make sure all committees are putting your goals in board on track, because that's how we said we agree we're going to keep ourselves accountable. I do think we have some of those goals for this year kind of spelled out from our strategic plan, but it will encourage, since we have time, a little more than a month between now and when we get together again, when your specific committee meets, please put this in the agenda. There's agreeing on the goals for this year, which again, I think we kind of know what those are. And I think we're making a lot of progress in those goals in the beginning of the school year already, but please do that. And I'll be checking on you guys before our next board meeting, because the next board meeting we're going to check, we're going to share that. Actually, no promises yet because we haven't agreed yet, but we're going to have somebody from Board on Track, Gina Fard, who you may have remember from our strategic planning meeting. She's going to come talk to us as well. So having those goals in place will be helpful for that. So look forward to that. Looking forward to seeing you guys in person. Like I said at the beginning of the meeting, we will not be going to executive sessions. So unless anybody has anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I actually, sorry, I hate to be the guy dragging.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know how much appetite there is for this, but Lisa and I had talked about it. If we could potentially have the meeting earlier in October, potentially on the earlier side of October. Of course, I don't know what all of your schedules look like, but just October 26th is almost 2 months since school started, and it's also been the start of a year when a lot has happened, especially from the teacher side of things. So at least in my opinion, it would be better to meet on an earlier week. I understand that if the date has already been set, there might be difficulties in changing it, but I at least wanted to bring up the idea.
Now, is the concern that there's some conflict that week, or is it just waiting?
No, not any conflict in particular on my part, just the fact that we didn't have a regular board meeting in September because, we were all busy with this sort of stuff.
So no preference on my end. I don't know if anybody else has any issues.
That works for me.
Do you know
It's fine by me, but I have another board meeting on October 5th.
how about the 19th? We move it a week.
Yeah, or the 12th.
There's
I know
no.
that I can't do the 19th.
I think it was my issue because the 26th was the only Thursday that I didn't have a
Okay.
class. So unless we go to Wednesday, the 26th is the only Thursday that I have.
Yeah, now it's coming back to me. I remember that discussion. So we could do the 11th. I cannot do the 18th. We want to consider it Wednesday.
It's also not exceedingly urgent if people's schedules are intervening. Like, I understand that this is somewhat last minute.
We could do a poll in the board on track. That's a possibility.
Can we?
I don't know.
Did I feed you?
I can do October
we'll take
11th.
it offline. So, yeah, sorry, is there something just?
I say we do the poll right here. Yeah, look for 11th and see who can make it and whether we have quorum or not. And if we don't, then we'll try the other one.
The only thing with the 11th, and it's not official because it's not Sarah's thing, I have that there's a governance meeting on the 11th.
There is.
Okay.
I think, given the, unless there's a specific item, I think we should stick to the 26th as we have, the committees have the requirements to put together their committee goals. And so I think we're going to need some time for that if we pull it in. I don't know.
So, I mean, Greg, is your concern also that you're, in terms of collecting teacher feedback and saying, okay, what's going on? How's the school year going? Is that where it's coming from? I'm trying to understand the motivation because there's probably other workarounds for us to do that. And if you're seeing any urgency, I would imagine you can reach out to Raul and we would basically figure out what needs to happen if that's the case. I'm sure Dr. Mobley would also make herself available if for those kinds of discussions, if you're seeing any kind of feedback that needs to be handled.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's just the volume of feedback, which I think has been, heightened given how many things changed, especially in September. I mean, of course, this is my first year as faculty rep, so I don't necessarily have a baseline for what is a normal September amount of feedback, but it has felt like a lot. So when I saw that we weren't meeting until the 26th of October, I was like, oh God, if I've already gotten this much feedback, I don't know how I could fit, another month and a half's worth into sort of a 5-minute report. But
So just-
again,
just to throw it out there, I think you can share that feedback in advance of board meetings.
We can, yeah.
So, and that makes it part of the board meeting documentation, so it will continue to be public. So if that helps, please do. I mean, I always welcome feedback, helpful feedback in any, as soon as we can get it.
that works. I think if that's the case, then I think keeping it on the 26th makes sense, especially in light of what Roger said.
Okay. All right, let's do that. But then if you have anything, if you want to, if you are eager to make your faculty rep report, maybe you can make a written one over email, and then that will be the September one.
You can send me that. I can upload it into Board on Track.
Yeah.
So that the board can read it.
That works.
Right? Deliberation, correct?
All right. Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we'll keep the 26th in person, and then Greg, you'll share anything that anything that you want with the whole board. I know sometimes we're concerned about open meeting law, but when it's something about informing and then something that will be made public anyways, it's okay. and we're not deliberating. Good to hear there's a lot of feedback. Hopefully it's constructive.
Couple
All
of
right.
bumps, and Greg and I have met, so.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I know I said this before, there's more than one channel for the feedback, so we have our way of handling that, so it's all good. All right, anything else? Thank you for bringing that up, Greg. Not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved.
All right, everybody at once.
Bella moved and Maura, you second, right?
I'll second. Yep.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Bella,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Evan,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Raul,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Salmini.
Yes.
That's everyone. Okay.
The motion passes. Have a great weekend, everybody.